the 1931 landmark decision, Neer v. Minnesota, the Supreme Court struck down a Minnesota law on the grounds that it violated the freedom of press protected under the First Amendment. This ruling protected the right to the freedom of press in Minnesota and has been used as precedent in U.S. courts since. During the late 1920s and early 1930s, Minneapolis was in the heat of its gangster era. It was a time when gangsters, bootleggers, gamblers, and mobsters roamed Minneapolis, a place where they could hide from the FBI. With corrupt politicians and law enforcement, in many ways, Minneapolis became ruled by its gangsters. Amidst all the crime were reporters and journalists who reported all that was happening.
The time period involved is one of the reasons that Neer v. Minnesota is such an interesting case, isn't it? Because of Minneapolis's history at that time. You know, at the turn of the century, it was a boom town, a reputation for a little bit of lawlessness here.
In 1925, one of those reporters was John L. Morrison, a man who had a scandal sheet called the Ripsaw. The Ripsaw personally attacked and degraded many politicians, one of whom was Mike Bolin. Bolin went on to make a bill, which eventually became a law, which was known as the Public Nuisance Law of 1925, also known as the Gag Law. The Gag Law was a law that permitted a judge, acting without a jury, to stop publication of any newspaper, magazine, or other periodical publication the judge found obscene, lewd, and lascivious, or malicious, scandalous, and defamatory. In 1927, a newspaper called the Saturday Press was born. It was created by two reporters, Howard Gulliford and J.M. Neer. The two created an anti-Catholic, anti-black, anti-Semite, and anti-labor paper. The paper often went on about how the city of Minneapolis was ruled by Jewish gangs. Almost immediately after the sheet was created, it started to target Mose Barnett, a so-called gangster by the paper. After Gulliford got, quote, shot down in cold blood by gangsters after he was threatened by Mose Barnett, quote, J.M. Neer took full control of the Saturday Press, for Gulliford was in the hospital. Since the police, quote, didn't take any action, quote, Neer assaulted Police Chief Brunskill and County Attorney Floyd B. Olson in the next edition of the paper. After this was all said and done, on November 21st, 1927, Floyd B. Olson filed a complaint against the Saturday Press, claiming that it was a malicious, scandalous, and defamatory newspaper. Olson could justify this through the Gag Law. Neer didn't get a court trial, and the Judge Baldwin, went in favor of Olson 100%. That meant that Neer had a complete temporary restraining order on publishing the Saturday Press or any other public sheet, which he later denied.
The ruling in Neer is incredibly important. The Supreme Court established a concept that still holds to this day, and it's called prior restraint. The notion that the government could stop a media outlet from publishing before it publishes.
J.M. Neer, using his newly cited lawyer, Thomas Latimer, took the fight to the courts, filing a lawsuit against Minnesota. They said that the Gag Law was unconstitutional and it violated the First and 14th Amendments. Aiding Neer was Robert R. McCormick, the owner of his own sheet, the Chicago Tribune. McCormick was a strong supporter of the First Amendment. McCormick mostly just gave Neer financial and legal help, but the two men did have a lot in common. McCormick crowded out the ACLU, who was Neer's original ally. McCormick also gained a few allies along the way for Neer, such as Waymouth Kirkland, who later became Neer's attorney in the Supreme Court, and the American Newspapers Publishers Association.
Prior to Neer, there hadn't been all that many cases that used a First Amendment defense successfully. Neer's was really a legacy case for that reason.
Then it happened on April 26, 1930. After losing in the Minnesota Supreme Court, Neer and McCormick pushed the case into the National Supreme Court. On Near's side, attorneys argued that even though some people may think that the certain sheet was yellow journalism, it would be more dangerous if the government got to control the press rather than the press being free. Although on the other side, Justice Butler, in favor of Minnesota, argued that if you let the press have full freedom, the press can do whatever they want, including blackmail and make threats. Other justices also brought up that the state of Minnesota can interpret the Constitution however they like. One of the biggest players in the case Near versus Minnesota was a justice by the name of Louis Brandeis. He was one of the justices who voted in favor of Near. But he wasn't just that. He was a heavy supporter in the rights protected under the Constitution, although he himself was not only a Democrat, but also a Jew, which the Saturday Press opposed. But Brandeis saw past that and looked at the big picture. The freedom of the press. In his arguments, he stated that in the Saturday Press, it tried to expose the crimes and evils of Minneapolis, which people had the right to know about. He said that you cannot disclose evil without naming the doers of evil. In a wrap-up, Brandeis said that if the press was not able to report all news, good or bad, then what is the press there for? The battle in the courts was not an easy one, and the justices in the Supreme Court had different views on the matter. It was as close to a 50-50 decision as one could get in the Supreme Court. Finally, when decision day came in the Supreme Court, with 4 justices in favor of Minnesota and 5 in favor of Near, the gag law was voted unconstitutional by the highest court in America.
A free press helps a democracy thrive. A free press makes people whose lives live under democracy better. And a free press is a fundamental element in maintaining a free and open democracy.
Right after the court voted in favor of Near, in the name of free press, the gag law got repealed. This was a turning point for Minnesota because of the freedom of press was now reinforced. Now reporters who published papers that were considered scandal in any way or target anyone who had the means of power to file a complaint under the gag law had the freedom of write. Especially since Minneapolis was in its gangster era, at a time when illegal things went on and it would get unnoticed by government officials. Reporters like Near and Guilford could now share this to the public. The case became a highly referenced case in the terms of freedom of the press. Near's legacy and impact on the courts will never be overlooked. Even though the public might not have commemorated Near's victory over Olson and the government of Minnesota as much, the Supreme Court looks back on that decision when dealing with freedom of the press issues to this day. In the Supreme Court, justices often look back at decisions they made in the past, and a lot of the time they influence decisions they make in the current court case.
The Founding Fathers thought very highly of the importance of press freedom to fight back against government excesses. And any efforts to sort of roll that back today are met very strongly, despite where people come down conservative or liberal politically. The courts have accepted the standard that prior restraint is a serious infringement upon press freedom.
An example of when a freedom of the press case turned out differently because of decisions made in Near v. Minnesota is the 1971 New York Times Company v. United States case. In that case, President Nixon tried to suspend publication of classified information about the Vietnam War by the New York Times. Then, the Supreme Court ruled that the First Amendment did protect the right for the New York Times to publish that information. Today, people can write almost anything they want in the press. It doesn't matter if some politicians think that it is malicious, scandalous, or defamatory. People can say whatever they want because of the American Constitution. Who knows, maybe the gag law would still exist today if J.M. Near hadn't stood up for his rights. Most importantly, the freedom of press remained a protected right in Minnesota and the USA.